are some of my board members that are also here. And yeah, so Eloise, having followed your work quite religiously, is a triple first graduate who was actually an associate at a US elite firm called Clearly Gottlieb, and she's now started her own startup. Yeah, so Eloise, would you like to carry on?
Hey, yeah, so hi everyone, thank you for having me. So yeah, my background was I studied law at university a long time ago. And after my law degree, I had a choice as to whether to stay on and do a master's or take a year out and have sort of like a gap year, which is what I chose to do eventually. And then after my gap year, I went to the University of Law. I did my LPC. I trained as a solicitor. I was at a US law firm called Cleary Gottlieb, and I did 2 years as a trainee there. About half of that in corporate, like corporate finance and also M&A. And then I did a taxi here in London and also a taxi out in New York. So I was kind of split between the London and the New York office. And after that, I came back to London. I did 3 years as a corporate associate, specializing in corporate tax. And now I'm on a little career break. I'm calling it a career break, although I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, whether I'll go back into the same, sorry about that, and the police, whether I'll go back into the same like sphere, the corporate world or not. I have a feeling that if I go back, I might go back into something like in-house law or something a little bit more broad, not specializing in tax as I did before. But at the moment, I am working on a startup. I've got a book coming out in October. I'm doing like bits and pieces of different things. And yeah, what else is interesting? So I am really into like well-being and mental health, especially in the legal profession. And I think it's so important that like as students, you like sort of get a real life insight into how difficult the profession can actually be, because I think it has a little bit of a reputation, especially the corporate world, of being like this glossy kind of amazing place that's like really kind of exciting and glamorous and just like, yeah, you know, you dream of like going to the city, at least I did. And especially having some experience on Wall Street, I kind of thought it would be a certain way. And I think it's just really important to have an idea of what, like how demanding the profession can actually be, not just in the city, but like basically anywhere you do law, it's quite a difficult career. And then armed with that knowledge to sort of build yourself a well-being toolkit or build yourself almost like some well-being strategies that you can start practicing now as students and take with you throughout your legal career. And that, I guess, is like the number one thing that I wish someone had told me before I went into law, is like, you can start right now and build yourself a really strong foundation for the road ahead, because it's actually quite difficult. Being a lawyer and like law school is difficult enough, but actually practicing as a lawyer, if you want to do it for a long time, you know, a lot of people burn out or go into it really quickly and then sort of realize that it might not be for them. And I think you can sort of take steps to protect yourself from like the ups and the downs by sort of building yourself a really good framework before you even start. So yeah, that's me. Was there anything you want me to talk about in particular, or do you want me to answer any questions?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's brilliant. I like how you talked about the ups and downs of a legal career, and definitely really enjoyed how you put how a lot of students are quite wearing rose tinted glasses when they're thinking working in a city, but it's actually so demanding and it does play a negative role on mental health. So we wanted to ask you, and specifically for this webinar today, is what do you do when you feel lost in a legal career, specifically with students going through applications and even preparing themselves for a career in law? They do sacrifice so much only to realize that it's not what it is. It's slightly unattainable, and their dreams get crushed even if they get a training contract.
Yeah, what I would say about that, and I obviously have a little bit of experience feeling lost in my career as well. So after actually kind of towards the end of my training contract, so I did my fourth seat out in New York, and it was a really interesting time for me, because I think a lot of people, when they come to the end of the training contract, even if they have a job on qualification at the firm they want, which was the case for me, even if that's all set up and it feels like, okay, yeah, I'm finally getting going, there is a natural kind of crossroads where you're thinking like, is this really what I want? Because once you launch into the associate life, you're then on a trajectory that's taking you in a certain direction. And as much as like the legal industry is changing and updating, there's a very traditional path still, which goes trainee, associate, senior associate, partner. And if you get onto that path, there's a little bit of a natural like push towards continuing that path. So I think I had a moment when I finished my training contract of thinking like, is this actually what I want to do? And so what I would say to people is, it's okay to be a little bit lost. I would say don't be afraid of sort of asking those questions of yourself. I actually think it would be worse to sort of deny the feeling of being lost and be like, this is exactly what I want, and just like 100% I'm going to go for it, and ignore the feeling that, oh, maybe this isn't exactly. And then, you know, you get 10 years down the line and you like wake up one day and you're like, what did I just do with my life? Like, was it even the thing that I wanted to do? So a lot of my work now, and I'm training as an existential psychotherapist. So that's kind of like the meaning and purpose of life, like the big life questions. And a lot of that work is really about embracing the uncertainties of life and embracing that feeling of lostness. So what I would say is like, if you are feeling lost, like acknowledge that firstly, and see what that feeling has to teach you. So instead of being like, I don't want to feel like this anymore, I just want to be in a stable career and like have a good income or whatever, see, like go a little bit further into that feeling, do some self-analysis, do some self-awareness stuff, like really try and figure out what about the career is making you feel lost. Is it the fact that you're not entirely sure that this is a good fit for you? Is it a fact that the lifestyle doesn't like really match up to your expectations? Is it the fact that like mentally or physically you're feeling just like depleted or burned out? And then see what you can learn from that. So whatever you find, you know, see if you can learn a lesson about, maybe if it is the fact that you're not entirely sure if this career is for you, you can start to sort of restructure your life around figuring out maybe what would be for you. And I think a lot of the time we as lawyers like sort of get trapped in this identity of like a corporate lawyer, or like I'm going to be this kind of person for life, or I'm going to be a family lawyer, I'm going to be a. And sometimes we're encouraged to like adopt that personality like quite early on, especially for law students. You know, we might get like 1 year into our degree and then like we're thinking, oh, what am I going to do for a job? Which is more like, it's way faster than it would be for like an English student or a history student who like do their whole degree and then think, you know, what should I do next? So I would say like be a little bit lighter with yourself, like let yourself feel a little bit lost, if like it's okay to feel a bit like you're in the unknown. Embrace the feeling, like take care of yourself, really maybe take a step back from like the intensity of your life and just like really look after your mental and physical health as a priority. And then just let yourself see what you can learn from the experience of being lost. That's what I would say.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. I do have a question that I think will be quite interesting. So as students and also as graduates, we've dedicated so much of our life to getting that legal career, that prize corporate law training contract, if you like. And when we do feel lost because we've surrounded our life, well, unhealthily as well, by doing everything we need to get that training contract, and when we start to feel lost, it does take a toll, and it can be very, very negative. It's like a black hole. And how would you advise that students and graduates start noticing that these are unhealthy habits, and this is an issue? If you start making your career your life, it's going to tear through you.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And like, it's interesting what you said about like how to start noticing, because I think like that's what I've seen as a kind of like in the sort of more well-being side of the work that I do as a sort of yoga and fitness instructor or like a meditation teacher. A lot of the time I see people who are burned out and they've kind of got to a stage like beyond like sort of just a negative habit. It's gone like further than it like, and then you really need to sort of make an intervention. But I think what you said about noticing quite early on is interesting, because that's really the skill I think that will help you have a sustainable career in like whatever profession you choose to go down. Like not sort of waiting until a point where it's like, okay, I literally can't carry on, but noticing like, what does it feel like when I wake up in the morning? Am I feeling like, oh, I can't be bothered to do this work again? Like, you know, and that's the third day in a row that you felt like that. Just noticing these patterns as they start happening, and then responding to them with like kindness and empathy towards yourself. And so I think there are two elements there. Like one is noticing, and that kind of comes from having a really good relationship with like yourself and like being really aware of how you're feeling and continually checking in with yourself. And you can do that loads and loads of different ways. So you can, you know, have a regular meditation or yoga practice, or like a regular well-being practice that's enabling you that time to like keep checking in with yourself. That's been really helpful for me. You can obviously do things like talking to friends and family, like if you have a little group of law students and you're all checking in with each other, like to see that you're doing okay, and like if checking in with anyone who's not. You can do things like therapy, obviously, if that's helpful to you, like speaking to a professional or even just a mentor. Or you can do things like creating yourself a little like wellness checklist that you run through every week, and you're just checking in with like, how's my mental health, how's my physical health. So it's quite a structured way of engaging with your well-being. And actually that was something that really worked for me. I think because as lawyers we're quite like, we like structure and like checklists and templates and stuff. I worked with the Lawyer magazine quite a few years ago now to put together like a little wellness checklist, which was designed to be undertaken like every single week. And the idea was like, when you come to the end of the week, you just run through this checklist and you do a little bit of journaling, a little bit of self-analysis, a bit of self-reflection, and you just see like, how am I actually doing? And then, so that is on the Lawyer magazine, like I'm sure that's still up on the internet somewhere. And then if you wanted to print that out yourself. Then the other element of it is non-judgment towards yourself. And this is an element that shows up in like, well, psychotherapy, but also in like, you know, meditation and yoga and stuff like that. And it's this element of being really like kind to yourself. So if you are feeling like, you know, if you do your weekly wellness checklist or whatever, and it comes out quite negative, like it comes out kind of like you're not feeling good, you're not doing well, instead of like blaming yourself or instead of like feeling really down about it, just taking care of yourself and like addressing the issue, whatever it is, with compassion and empathy. So I think those two elements, awareness and then compassion or empathy.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Eloise. I actually had a glimpse into your new book that you've come up with, the Purpose Handbook, if I'm not wrong.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
pre-ordered it, just a little cheeky snippet in. Really excited. But what I was really drawn, and I feel that students are also really drawn into it, is the simple fact that, you know, when you're feeling motivated or energized, it's really difficult because it's all fixated on the idea of what corporate law is, and we actually don't know. Even going on vacation schemes or internships, they do still paint a rosy picture. They'll try to tell you this is going to be tough, but they still give you the most interesting cases to work on, which will never be the case in any firm. There will be so much ancillary tasks, and half the time you're basically battling clients on end. So how would you tell students to be more aware of what feeling motivated and energized about the law profession actually is like?
Yeah, I think that is such a good point, and it's like 100% something I experienced. Like I did 7 vacation schemes, and even at the end of like 7 like internships, basically, I was like, when I went into my training contract, I was like, oh, this wasn't like any of the things that I'd done. And so I think you're absolutely right in that, like, you won't be able to know, like, that is the reality of it. Like, as much as you have coffees with people who are lawyers, or like you come to events like this and hear someone talk about what it's like, or you even do a vacation scheme and you're in the office for 3 weeks, like, even if you get that, the reality is you will not know what it's like to do the job until you do the job. And I think that's kind of just like with any job, like that probably is the case, you know. With law, I think when you go into whatever it is, you need to have, and this comes back to the idea of purpose, like you need to have a sense of like why you're doing it. And I think maybe even more than other careers, because law is such a demanding profession that it's like you can't just do a 9 to 5 and then like go home and sort of relax and do your passion project in the evening. Because especially if you go into a corporate law firm, you're exchanging like pretty much all of your time for like a really good salary and really good training experience and like a really good, you know, professional life. So I think just being really honest with yourself about like, you know, is this something that you want? Like really, really, is it something that you want? Or is it, and again, like without judgment, because obviously like some people do it for the money and that's like totally legit. If it is for the money, like, is that enough to sustain you for like a long period of time? Or is there another way of like earning a lot of money that would be sort of less demanding on your like personal life? If it's not for the money, if it's for something else, like you want to help the world, or you want to like do something good in the world, are you sure that this career path is going to deliver that? Or are there other elements of law that you might want to look at, for example, like human rights law or criminal law or whatever? But you know, whatever answers you come up with during that exercise, just making sure that it's strong and it feels true to you, like, and it's purposeful enough to keep you motivated over time. Because like you said, once you get into the job and it does become quite demanding and exhausting, that sense of purpose is going to be the thing that actually provides your energy to, like, you know, get up at 3 a.m. and like send a client a document, which is like something you will be doing in corporate law probably. And that sense of purpose is going to be the thing that lasts. Because you know, people who do it, and there are a lot of people who do it for like reputation, good salary, like all of those reasons are fine, like they're absolutely legit reasons. But you know, you have to check in with yourself, are they strong enough reasons to like get you up every single morning to do the job again? For some people they are, for some people they aren't. So I think it's kind of a personal question.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I think we have quite a stream of questions coming in, but because Sonia has been raising her hand, Sonia, would you like to unmute your mic and ask Eloise a question that you have?
Hi, Eloise. I'm Sonia. Nice to meet you. Really, what I wanted to ask you was, you're very passionate about well-being, and you seem to be someone who is very connected with your values. And I was just wondering, especially in the corporate world, people will have different values about what motivates them. If you're in a team where other people's values don't align with your own, how do you deal with that? Because, for example, I was in a paralegal role last year where I felt like I was almost being bullied, which wasn't very nice. And, you know, but I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. I just didn't necessarily enjoy working with the people that I was working with. So how do you sort of reconcile that with, yeah, like your values with the people around you? Because some people may, for example, especially partners, may not necessarily you know about well-being, or think that it's an important thing. So how do you then push that in your firm?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I think also for those of us who want to go like into corporate law, if any of you are thinking about it, there are some times when either like a personal issue, like sort of a personality clash, like you were mentioning, or people creating an environment that is like bullying or harassment, or, you know, I've seen it a lot in different contexts. Or it might just be the fact that you go into corporate law and then you have to work on a project that's not like compliant with your own set of personal values. That happens a lot, because if you are someone who's like passionate about, let's say, like sustainability or health and well-being or whatever, like you're not in control of what you get to work on, like as a junior lawyer. That is just the fact of it. And so there are going to be situations which like might run up against your, not always, but like that might run up against your personal value set. So I would say like it's got to be, again, it's got to be like a really personal evaluation of like, is this having a real impact on me? And so again, the first step is always like noticing the kind of like what's going on, like you said, figuring out like this is a bullying environment and noticing that. Then figuring out like what impact that is having on you. Like, is it having an impact on your mental and physical health? Like probably, if it's bullying, like, yeah, probably would. And then figuring out like what is going to be your strategy here, and just be really honest with yourself. Like, is it something that I can see like strategically, I'm going to endure this for another like couple of months, then I'm going to be able to move roles because I will have like gained enough experience, or I will have saved up enough money to like move firms or whatever. And sometimes it's more about like making a plan to get out of those environments than like sort of throwing everything away and being like, you know, I'm just going to walk out of here. But sometimes it is about like throwing everything away. If it is like impacting on you to such an extent that you feel like you have to stand up and say something, then like, you know, again, I think it comes down to personal judgment in the circumstances of like, what is the situation here? Like, how much is it impacting on me? And what do I feel like I need to do about it? And it might be sometimes you are strategic and sometimes you are like vocal, and like sometimes it's a mix of both. So I know that's kind of like a cop-out answer, but I don't think there's like a one-size-fits-all solution. And then I think like, if it is that you've joined a firm that's the firm's values or like the team's values run up against yours in like a very substantial way, and you just can't see yourself working there, I'd say like you got to sort of make a decision to move yourself into a different environment, because ultimately, like with law and paralegal jobs, like anything in the kind of legal profession, these are such demanding roles. They take up so much of your energy. You give so much of yourself to them, that I think it's really important to find a place that actually deserves that time and attention from you. And if you don't feel like you're in the right place, then take your skill set somewhere else. And, you know, you're all like qualified and, you know, intelligent enough to work in like a huge multitude of places. So just making sure that that place that you give your time and attention to is actually sort of worthy of it.
That's actually very inspiring. I'm gonna steal that now. No, I love it. Yeah, so I have a few questions here for you. We're getting really into it. I think we're all getting to know ourselves a little bit better here. So Rachel asks, how do you deal with the feeling like you've invested too much to back out now?
Yeah, like getting into the like getting a little bit far down your like professional path. Yeah, that's really interesting, because I actually had that quite a lot this year. So I left law in at the end of January. And the weird thing about leaving law and like going to do something else is that you suddenly feel like, you know, on the 30th of January, my time was worth like X amount of like $700 per hour, whatever. And then on the 1st of February, it was worth like $0 per hour, because when you step into a different industry, you sort of start again. And sometimes it does feel a little bit like, wait, what am I doing? Because I've literally just spent like, you know, almost a decade of my life at this point, like either at law school or university studying law, or like, you know, training to be a lawyer, and also like making a sort of brand for myself in the legal space with my first book and everything. And I definitely had that feeling of like, oh, wait a sec, this is really like, what am I doing here? But I think the way I see it is like, it's actually really exciting to start again. And it's actually a massive gift to be able to like leave that identity to one side. Like all of that is done, like it's finished, and it's something no one can take away from you. Like the successes and the stuff that you've built up so far, that all belongs to you. It's not like stepping away is going to remove any of that. It's just an opportunity to see like, what would a different path be like, and like, what would it be like to start again and learn from the beginning? And I think going in with a beginner's mind, they sometimes say in sort of meditation settings, and that's like the quality of mind that is like able to learn and to stay curious and to stay open and to stay energetic. Actually starting again can be the best thing to cultivate that kind of sort of mental quality. So I would say, see it as an opportunity, see it as something really exciting. And also, by the way, law is one of those things that you can go back to. Like once you are qualified as the lawyer, all of that experience is still there for you. So if you do take a break, or you go and do something else and you feel like maybe that was a mistake, I built up so much, I want to go back, there are normally ways that you can sort of transition back into the space. And law is actually, I mean, lots of other careers as well, but law is a good career for that because of the way you qualify and you sort of build up your experience. So I'd say as long as you're learning, as long as you're feeling excited about it, like it can be a really, really positive thing.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic segue into the next question, which is, so how do you differentiate being resilient to your dreams and just being stubborn, really?
Right. Yeah. Like sort of going after something when, yeah, there's always like a bit of a danger when you're like chasing a dream so passionately that isn't really good, like it's not really serving you anymore, and you get a bit stuck in the like, I'm just going to do it because I like feel like I need to do it. And then there's also an art in knowing when to like finish something. So I'd say again, it comes back to this like idea of sort of awareness and like checking in with yourself and seeing, is that dream still serving you, like, and really being honest with yourself, because sometimes we sort of skip the honesty bit and we sort of look at it from an external perspective and we think, yeah, just like fight for your dream. But if honestly, if you know like intuitively that this dream or this passion or whatever isn't like what you want to do with your time, or it's not taking you in the right direction, then just having the ability to say to yourself, like, maybe I should reconsider. And I think there's actually there's a real skill in knowing when to end something, because a lot of people don't know how to create endings in their life. And you see people cling on too long for like in a certain place or in a certain job or in a certain location, like even when the thing has naturally come to an end, people sort of get stuck there and they just stay there for the next like 30 years of their career without really ever considering like, could I do something different or something more exciting? So there's a real art in like knowing when to turn around and like end something nicely. And also endings can be kind of beautiful, is what I would say, is like you can come to the end of something and like celebrate it as like something you've done really, really well, and then start again with something new. And so just like entering into that process and allowing it to be like quite natural, quite instinctive, and sort of like something to be celebrated rather than something you see as like a failure of a dream. Instead, you can say, this is the natural end of this path, and now I'm going to start like a new thing.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. Which it's quite a weird transition, but I would say that's why probably why some funerals in cultures are celebratory instead of mourning.
Yeah, I was saying this to someone the other day actually, like, you know, we have the capacity to like redefine or like to define and put a narrative on our own experiences. And if we choose to see an ending of like a career or like a stage of our lives as something to be celebrated, we like have the authority to do that for ourselves. And I think our culture doesn't really celebrate endings as much as it does like sort of beginnings. And like I was saying, I think there's a sort of glamorization of the like hustle until you can't hustle anymore, and just like go for your dream and like put your sort of blinkers on and just like, is that the right word, and just like go and like 100% go for your dream and like don't stop until you get there. And I think actually there's a sort of softer, more intuitive approach, which is like knowing when to stop and change directions. And I think that's something that you can sort of claim for yourself and like celebrate for yourself.
Definitely agree with it. Right. So next question is by Azhar. As a non-law student who has decided to pursue a career in corporate law, but getting a TC is such a competitive process and it does take a toll on us, are there any recommendations about where to look other than introspection in terms of considering a career in law when we feel lost and feel like giving up?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's such a difficult process for anyone, like law and non-law, but especially non-law, because I think as law students, we're sort of surrounded a little bit more with like the legal world from the start of our degrees. But non-law, I would say, I mean, there's so much out there now that firms are offering in terms of like work experience or vacation schemes. And there are quite a few online things now. It's actually a great time to be looking and trying to get experience now, because there's so much online stuff, like as a result of the pandemic. What I would say, and this is what I did when I was a law student, is treat it almost like part of your studies, so like another module that you were taking in your degree. And that way, like, it sort of defines the time, so it like gives you a specific slot in which to do it. And it also makes it feel more manageable. And I know like thinking of it as part of your degree kind of sounds a bit like dramatic, but when you put like boundaries around it and you say like, this is when I'm going to work on my job finding process, it actually makes it a little bit less like scary and like all encompassing than if you just think, oh my God, I've got to find this thing, I don't even know where to start. And then once you have your like specific time period allocated, whether it's like, I'm going to do 2 hours on Friday afternoon, whatever, then I'd just be super, super methodical about it. I would say like the first session, you're just going to do research and you're just going to Google as much as you can, get all of the resources, compile loads and loads of information, start to sort through that information, get some timelines, some dates and deadlines, find your favorite firms. So when I was applying for firms, I had this giant like ring binder and I had like 30 different firms in there that I really wanted to apply to. And like for each firm, I would have like, this was in the days when we were all printing a lot because we didn't know the value of trees. But I would have like a cover page saying what the firm was and like a little bit of background on it. And then I would have another page that had like dates and deadlines for applying for internships. And I would just be so like, I know this sounds so like dry and boring, but like I'd just be so methodical about it. And actually being super methodical of like, I'm just going to research the firms, I'm going to research what applications they have, I'm going to like set aside time to do my applications. Actually doing it in that like really structured way takes the fear out of it a little bit, because it's like, okay, this is just a task, and it's a task just like my uni work is a task. And if you go through step by step by step and break it down into like the smallest things, then you'll get there. And I think that for me was actually, I mean, obviously it depends on how you work best, But for me, like, it was way easier when I just saw it as like another like to-do list item, rather than every morning just thinking like, oh my God, I've got to get a job. It's like so terrifying. Instead, it was just like, okay, this is when I'm going to do it and this is what I'm going to do. So maybe try that and see how it works.
Yeah, no, I really like the making it a module. I consider it a part-time job, but you know, yeah. So the next question is from Vedangani, and she asks, as someone from India, where only a handful apply for TCs in London, it's a very lonely process with no mentors, buddies, or community. How do you suggest dealing with loneliness in this process?
Yeah, that's interesting actually. And I think like there are a lot of digital communities out there now. And so I would say, see if you can find your people, whether that is like other people who are applying for like back schemes. There are probably big communities out there. I know like when I was applying, I tried to find my sort of group of people who were also applying around the same time. And there used to be like, this was before the days of LinkedIn, there used to be like message boards and stuff that we would like post on, and like, I'm going to this internship. I'm sure now you can find your group of like law students that are like, they're around somewhere on LinkedIn, and some kind of group of people who are applying at the same time. And then what I would say, as well as like joining those kind of digital groups to find like the people that are doing the same process as you, is see if you can forge some like sort of mentoring relationships. And I think those are important because if you have someone who's a little bit further down the line than you are, they can often give you an insight that your peer groups can't. So I would say see it on two levels. You're kind of the people on the same level as you, which like your people, your kind of intake that are like applying for firms at the same time as you. So whether that's like people in your year or people that you found online. And then the people that are like 1 or 2 years above you, like maybe junior lawyers. There are a lot of mentoring schemes out there. And you know, there are some great ones. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Grow Mentoring. It's run by a friend of mine. But there are lots of others kind of out there that will pair you with a junior lawyer. See if your university like offers anything. Sometimes they offer like mentoring schemes and stuff like that. And yeah, just like reach out to people is what I would say. Like, I know it can feel like a lonely process. It definitely did for me as well. But there will be a lot of other people who are also finding it lonely. And if it's specifically you're looking for other people who are maybe like coming from international students, or like people who are sort of feeling a bit out of the general sphere of like whatever you're feeling out of, there will be other people feeling like that as well. There are always people in similar situations to you. So making sure that you kind of reach out and see who's out there, and then forming those relationships. I know it kind of seems hard at first, but like these relationships organically grow over time. And like when I was starting out, I didn't have like any close friends who were really doing the same thing as me. But by the end of the process, I knew like 20 people who were doing the exact same thing. So I think over time, you just get a bigger and bigger network.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. I think the number of people that decided to apply to similar firms that I did was only much later, when I started actively applying for them and actually wanting to connect. So I think that that is really strong in terms of motivation, and it also keeps you going, knowing other people are also going.
Yeah. And also the more application like things that you go to, like the more sort of, if you go to like an internship or you go to an open day, you'll sort of see those people. And then you start seeing them at different things, and like the community just gets really small, and by the end of it you'll wish that you were like more alone, because everyone else is like doing the exact same thing as you. You're like, damn it, there are so many of us. Like, you know, you just get more and more into the community. And I think like when you're at the start of the process, it feels like you can't see any of those people, but they are like out there, and they're probably feeling a very similar way to you. So yeah, give it time. And again, like reach out as much as you can. But I think forming mentoring relationships is really, really important with kind of junior lawyers, people who are just a few years older than you. So if you can see any of those people, maybe just asking them, you know, can I ask you 5 questions about your career or whatever? They're normally quite willing to like give you a bit of time.
Yeah, and I feel that that's also dual beneficial. On the other side, we're getting an insight, but we also don't know that we're helping them remotivate them for their careers, because it can be grueling for them as well. So I think
100%.
really good.
And you know what, like the best way to get a mentoring relationship with someone is to like basically ask for their wisdom, because that is a win-win situation. Like people, senior lawyers especially, love being asked for like wisdom on the process, and for you as like an applicant, like that is the best information you can get, because they will give you free of charge, and normally like with excitement they'll give you like their top tips on getting into the industry. And also people love being asked for their like, you know, for their insights and stuff. So as much as you can, like make it a learning relationship where you're like, you know, you're asking them to share something and you're also getting something in return.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. Thanks, Eloise. So we have the next question here for you, which is also by Rachel. What are your thoughts on balancing a law career and side passion projects? And will you have time for that? I know that you balance ballet, writing, and so many things. So I think you're definitely the right person to answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, I do get asked this a lot, but I think again it comes down to being realistic. So there's always going to be a point at which like you have to choose between doing like a million things outside of work and like and your professional work, and also like your relationships with other people. And like I've definitely got that balance wrong in the past. Like there have been times when I've just like neglected, you know, my friends or like my family or whatever to do like my full-time job plus all of these like random side projects. So I think it's like trial and error. I don't think you ever find like this perfect balance and then you kind of just like settle into it and like you're just good for the rest of your life. But I think, you know, working out realistically how much time you have available and then prioritizing, those are probably the things that I would say are key in finding the balance. So like, how much time do you actually need to do your job to a really high standard and to make sure that the job is done to the standard it needs to be done? And then how much time do you need to recover from that work, which actually could just be, you know, lying in bed and like sleeping or scrolling through your phone or whatever recovery looks like for you. You know, it doesn't have to be like going to a yoga class or whatever. And then like how much time do you have outside of that to do your side project? And I think a lot of the time I see people, especially now, because there's such a push towards like the side hustle or whatever, I see a lot of lawyers trying to like start a business on the side or like try and start something. And I think the more commitments you get on, like that you take on, the more realistic you just have to be about, is the quality of my work suffering as a result of this? And if it is, like I have to stop doing what like I'm doing on the side. And I think when you join a firm, you make a commitment to that firm to like, you know, give them your absolute best work. And if you find like your side projects are kind of taking your energy away from that, then like your first priority has to be your job. I think that's so important for lawyers now, because for some reason we're all like obsessed, me included, we're all like obsessed with having little side projects. But at the same time, there will come a point, probably if you do have a side hustle that you've managed to kind of keep going, there probably will come a point where you have to choose. And like for me, that point was like a few months ago when I had another like a new book deal, and I thought like, oh, shall I just try and like do this alongside work? And then I just thought realistically, like this isn't going to be fair to either my book or to my job as a lawyer, because at one point like the quality of one of those things is going to suffer. And I think it's like, for me at least, it's been more important to do things to a high quality, say like quality over quantity. And so then I made a decision to switch over. So I guess all that is to say, like, it's great to have side hustles. Like I think it's really important and exciting to have things you're passionate about in your life, but being realistic, knowing how much time you have available for it, not overcommitting yourself, and then just keeping a really close eye on the quality of your like work. So your work in your actual job and your work in your side hustle, and just making sure like, you know, is it worth it to try and do all of those things at once? I forgot what the original question was, but I wonder if that answered it.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely answered it. I think just to summarize, it's making sure you're able to balance your side hustles with your job, so long as you don't sacrifice any quantity. Otherwise, it's better to choose. It's always...
Yeah, and also like it's fine not to have a side project, is what I would say. Like, even though everyone always like says, oh, how do you do so many things? Like, how do you do this and this and this? To be honest, like when I was at university, I just did my degree. Like that was basically all I did. I did a little bit of like society stuff and like some, you know, I was doing fitness like just for my own personal health. But I did not like write a book and teach yoga or whatever. Like these things build up over a period of like, well, I've been like in the legal world for a decade, like including university for a decade now. And so like all of these things take a long time. I had qualification leave, I had a gap year. So I was taking breaks like the whole time. And, you know, it's not the case that, you know, if you look at someone's social media and they're doing like 11 things at once, like they probably aren't. Like that probably isn't the realistic day in the life of them. Like they're probably doing stuff on the weekends, or they've just been building something over a period of 6 months. And so I would say don't put pressure on yourself to, if you feel like you just need to concentrate on one thing, just concentrate on one thing, and like that's more than enough than you need to do.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Right. So we're gonna end off with Gia's last question, which is, if you're no longer sure that law is for you, but you're so close to qualification, do you think you should abandon it or wait until you're qualified?
Do you know what? I would say wait until you're qualified. If you're so close, like you gotta wait. unless you're feeling like it's literally taking like a toll on you mentally or physically, in which case like 100% prioritize that. But if it's just a feeling of like, I'm not quite sure, like I don't think this is for me, I'd say just qualify, like stick it out for a little while longer. Almost see it as like getting your degree. If you were like 2 weeks off your getting your degree, you'd probably just be like, I should, if you're okay physically and mentally, like then maybe just like go for it. Because the thing about qualification is, like I was saying earlier, it is a thing that you have, then you have it for yourself. And like regardless of what you do, if you take a 10-year break, you're still a qualified lawyer, so you can still come back to it. And also it looks so much better, you know, if you can say, I've done this period of qualification, I finished it, I was done, and then after like the day after qualification, like go do whatever it is you want to do. But like obviously depending on your own personal circumstances, like if there's something going on in your life that you do need to have a break, even if you need to step back for a while, sometimes firms are like super supportive. And if it is the case that like you just can't carry on, then ask your firm, can I have a little bit of like, can I have a few months off? Can I come back? Can I, you know, have some time out and then come back or finish it somewhere else? But all I would say is like the value of that qualification is really, really strong. And if you're almost there, like you might be able to just like power through, and then 10 minutes after you qualify, like, bye, I'm going off to like do something else.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely, no one can take qualification away from you ever, no matter what.
Unless you do something very frustrating. But yeah, none of you guys will be.
But also read the SRA regulations before doing anything.
yeah. But none of you guys will be at risk of that, I'm sure.
Hopefully. Right. Okay, so we've come to the end of, oh, it's really sad, but I really enjoyed this whole talk on what to do when you feel lost in your career. You can feel lost in the initial stages, you can feel lost in the middle stages, you can feel lost anywhere. And it does not mean that you're not good enough. It just means that, you know, your purpose has changed. People can have more than one purpose. If you read Eloise's book, she explains it beautifully. But yeah, so her book is also coming out, in case if anyone is interested in it. It's called The Purpose Handbook, and it's out in Waterstones quite soon.
Yeah, and all probably your local bookshop and various other places. So if you don't want to buy it off Amazon, or you have an objection to that. But yeah, and I personally will be posting about it on Instagram and stuff. There might be some like discounts and stuff near the time, or like deals and stuff, so I'll post about those. But yeah, and if you guys have any like further questions or anything, drop me a DM on Instagram. I don't normally check them, but if you put like, hi, I saw this event today, I'll definitely look out for it.
That's brilliant. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for agreeing to come on the Legal Mile. Yeah, so just to end off, so just to remind everyone that the reason we started Legal Mile is to break barriers to entry of laws for absolutely no cost. And it's to help you holistically and not just your applications. So this mental health initiative will be an ongoing effort to continue to help you improve yourself, to understanding what law is about, but also understanding what you're about in the legal profession. Yeah, Ashar, any last words?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Eloise. It's been a great kind of event, and I mean, the mental health aspect of getting into law is very important, because many of us on the legal mile itself are final year students, and we felt it, and we had meetings about it, about our mental health, and how we are kind of feeling lost as well. So thank you so much for this. I'm sure we will be able to take a good look at ourselves and see where this goes. So yeah, Lavanya, back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And hopefully Eloise will be happy to join us for future events, because I really want to ask her what it was like being a monk for a year. So
Yeah.
that would be really interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that'll be really interesting to ask. But yeah, we've come to the end of this session. We will stop recording now.